So, like I said in the last video, we're going to start off with just looking at like the different interfaces Blender has, getting accustomed to them, the things they can do, and how they work. Now, we just want to point out that when you start at Blender, you'll see this pop up on your screen, unless you disable it, which I don't think you can, but there might be a way for you to disable it that I just haven't seen yet. And under New File, you'll see like General, 2D Animation, Sculpting, VFX, Video Editing. Whichever one you click, that'll create a new file that is specifically, that starts out in the workspace for that option. So like you can click Sculpting, it'll start you out in a Sculpting workspace, Video Editing workspace, and General. It's pretty much the same as if I were just to click off of that menu. You just go to this, default cube, light, camera, basic stuff, you know? Now, we're going to start the video by going through layout. Layout is simplest of them. It's where you'll like lay out your scene for like when you're going to render it. So you got your camera here, which is what the view that your render will be out of. So when you eventually go up to render, hit render image, render animation, what you see will be from what your active camera is. Like the camera you have set as active, what it sees will be what is rendered out, along with the materials, the lighting, and everything. But layout, you can just move stuff around, position your scene, stuff like that. I always just use it for the actual modeling though, even though there is a modeling workspace right here that'll put you right into it. Just if I were to still have the cube selected, it would have immediately been in edit mode, so I could just move vertices around, extrude them, stuff like that. Sculpting, what you do in there? Oh god, I forgot, I messed everything up. I'm just gonna do File, New, General, just start over. Now sculpting, what you can do there is exactly that. You can sculpt with what you have. Now, something I want to point out, I'm going to do like a more in-depth video on the sculpting workspace later because I do really enjoy sculpting and I want to do like a separate video for that. But I just want to say there's two ways of sculpting. You just got the basic sculpting, which will just move the vertices you have around. But if you want to be adventurous and say screw it to your computer's decent temperature, you can go in here, go to Dyntopo, which stands for Dynamic Topology, and then you can mess with the detail size. Now what dynamic topology does is rather than just moving the vertices that are already there, it'll add new vertices as you sculpt. It'll create new geometry so that you have more to work with. And you can just build that out. Do a bunch of crazy stuff with it. See, a bunch of crazy stuff. Now, UV editing, what that is, it is just editing like the layout of your UVs. UVs are what is used when you're messing with textures. So like say I wanted to have like colors and text and stuff on this, I would mess with the UV and then put an image in over here to like spread it out over the UV, because when you're messing with the UVs, what you can do is you can set like seams and stuff that'll tell like how to like break apart the mesh and then put the image on it, because the UV is what tells like where each part of an image will go on the object. I really hope I explained that right. Texture paint. I never mess with texture paint much, so I'm not sure of what it does, but from what I understand it, you can just missing textures. Yeah, I know. You can just go and you can like paint textures onto it, as far as I understand. I could be wrong. Probably not going to do a video on texture paint, so you probably have to go find something else for that, because I've never really touched on texture painting, and when I have, I had no clue what I was doing. So yeah. Now, shading is the fun stuff. Shading is what kills this computer. Now what you do with shading is it'll put you into this lovely workspace where you notice, hey, there's stuff around it, because it automatically loads in HDRI for this. And HDRI is an image that goes around your entire scene. I'm probably going to have a separate video on that too in this series, so that I can better explain like what it is. I'm just going to quickly touch on it for this one. So like it's an image that goes around your entire scene and produces all the lighting and stuff so that you can get like realistic, decent lighting. And if I remember right, the viewport shading mode it puts you in for the shading workspace is your look def, which if I remember right uses the, well, yeah, it uses the EV render engine, which is a real-time rendering engine, to tell you like how it'll look, and you can like go in and just mess with like the colors and stuff, and a bunch of other things about it. Like you can mess with the specular tint. I don't remember what that does, but I remember specular. If you just put those up and mess with roughness, it gets a bit shiny. You can also throw up metallic, which will make it a bit, oh god, which will make it look like a more metally thing. And you can go for stuff like that. Now, Eevee is just like for quick, decent rendering, whereas Blender also has another render engine called Cycles, which is a bit more taxing on this computer. But Cycles is meant for photorealistic rendering, whereas Eevee is just meant for like stylized. So like if you want to go for style, Eevee's the way to go. If you want to go for realistic, Cycles is the way to go. Oh god, what is it doing? Next up, we got the animation workspace. Animation is like where you will go if you want to make things move around, if you want to render like a video or something like that. So like I could go in here, I could say I want it to just move like from there to over there. I could go in here, hit I over location, GX, X is to like lock the movement along the axis. In fact, let's go to a different frame. Let's go all the way to frame 250. And hit G to like move it around, X to lock it on the X axis, move it a bit. There, we've got it there. Hit I on that. And then you notice all this stuff is go here, because what we just did, when we hit I, we created a keyframe. And what it'll do is Blender will automatically figure out how it'll move between the keyframes. So if we start playing it, you notice the object starts moving. Fairly slow, but is moving, it's animated, it's doing things. The next up is rendering. This is fairly straightforward. It'll just show you what you rendered. Stuff like that. Now compositing, what compositing does is that's for if you want to have like special like effects on your render. So like you could say you're in Cycles. Cycles doesn't have bloom by default, but Eevee does. Eevee, you could just hit a checkbox and then boom, you've got bloom, as you can see like right there. But if you go into compositing and you're using Cycles and you want to do it, you could just move stuff around and then just bring up a glare node. And what you do is you just put it in there. What it'll do is it'll put the output of what you rendered through the nodes you put in, and then change it based off of that. So like I could get, if I wanted like a bloom effect, I could go in here, put fog glow, and then boom, basic sloppy gloom. And you can also use this for like denoising, like when you've got a bunch of speckles on your render, you can use that to deal with that. Now scripting, what scripting is for you can create, with Blender, it's completely open source. So you can create like scripts and add-ons to like speed up what you're doing. Like a decent chunk of add-ons that are made, they're made by other people who use Blender. So like you can make your own add-ons that only you have and you use because that's something you want, something that you feel like you could get to go quicker, that you would like to go quicker. So you can just throw together an add-on and then add it to Blender, and then it's there, you can use it, or you can just make a script and just run it each time you want to do whatever the script is for. And so Blender has its own workspace for you to work on those kinds of things. I'm probably not going to make a video on it because everything's in Python, and even though I do have a big book of Python somewhere in my house, to this day I still have not read it decently, so I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to Python. I know a decent amount of JavaScript, but not Python, so I'm not going to touch on the scripting workspace. And that's pretty much all of them. Like, I already touched on what this does pretty much. Oh yeah, in File, you've got your basic stuff. You can put export. Render, I'm going to really quickly touch this. Render image, it'll just render, like, whatever frame you're on, just, like, a still image. Render animation, like, it'll render, like, every frame. So, like, you could see a video of, like, say, that little movement we set up. And then render audio, that's for, like, if you have, like, a proper video setup and you've got, like, audio and stuff in there, it'll render the scenes audio to a sound. Yeah, it'll render it to a sound file so that you can have it, and then in like a video editing program, like I use Light Source, I think it's called. I literally just downloaded it like a few minutes ago and I forgot what it's called. You can put the rendered video and the audio together, and then boom, you've got your stuff. And then you can just view what you rendered or view your animation. Oh, something I didn't touch on because it doesn't have its own workspace by default. Well, it's a couple things. I'm going to go 2D animation, VFX, and video editing. So start off with video editing because I pointed that out in the intro to this series. what the video editing is, like I said, I never use it because it always crashes my computer when I try to export because I'm on a Windows Surface. But what it is, you can use Blender to edit videos. So like say you could export your you could render your video and your audio for a little video you're making, and then you could put them back into Blender in the video editing workspace, and then put them together so that they actually go together and you have like a proper video with sound and video. And then next up we've got new 2D animation. 2D animation workspace. It's kind of straightforward. It's what, if you don't know what 2D animation is, it's just frame by frame animation. You like draw something, move on to the, oh god, you draw something, move on to the next frame, draw something else, and it animates. You 2D artists would probably enjoy that. God. And then one other thing, VFX. What you can do with VFX, I'm kind of surprised I'm recording this all at once. What you can do with VFX is, say you already have a video. You already have a video, but you want to put like special effects on it. That's what VFX is for. You can put in your video and then put like special effects that you've made in Blender into it. That way you have like cool stuff going on, like sci-fi robots and explosions and stuff like that. Ooh. Robots and explosions. They typically go hand in hand. If you've ever seen Terminator, you would probably agree. And yeah, that's, oh yeah, I forgot each of these has their own stuff. So masking, crap, a lot of this I've never touched on. So I'm not going to touch on stuff that I don't know. Let me just make sure there's nothing I missed. Sculpting just has shading. Oh yeah, sculpting has its own workspace. It'll give you like a quad sphere that you can just sculpt on. And no, Dine Topo is not on. It just has a lot of topology on it. And then for video editing, don't save. Video editing, you just got a video editing workspace and a rendering workspace. I'll just show you what you've rendered. And that's pretty much it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. Feel free to drop a like or subscribe. Check out the links in the description. One of those really helps out. And I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.